And wait for a bit. Alright, everybody. Hey, guess what? It's October 12th. It's a Saturday, and it's 2019. And, well, guys, there's a lot that's been happening, and there's a lot that people are starting to get, but a lot of them think they're getting it, and they're idiots. Ed, why don't you explain that?
Thank you. I'd like to thank everybody for joining us again tonight. We're going to be some education on the structure from the birth certificate, including the corruption that's going on in California right now. See, people are thinking that this is just like an exercise or the government's protecting them because they're shutting off electricity, putting martial law in their communities. And then we're going to be surprised. I'm waiting to see with this martial law that people are not going to get advertising, people are not going to get media, people ain't going to be able to get YouTube on the structure because they're shutting everything around that area. And how they're able to shut it down is those G5 meters that you got. Your meter on your home and cell towers. So they can shut everything down in that radius. So that means nothing could be out, nothing could get out. No recordings, no radio waves, no nothing. And now they're trying to go after ham radio, and ham radio is the only one, or the CBs are the only one that you'll be able to get out in any emergency. But people are not educated or intelligent in this fashion because, see, now the federal government, especially in California, is trying to make it illegal in California to have a ham radio or a CB. So isn't that interesting? We're having blackouts right now. So now dealing with martial law that they've implemented, and I've talked to people in California, and they're going, oh, yeah, it's not a big deal. We just have to go. But then again, they haven't had electricity. Some of these people are elderly and disabled, and their food is rotting in their refrigerators. And it's like the freezers are thawing out. And it's like, are people really that stupid? I mean, I'm not going to say uneducated. That's just stupid. Because, you're not filing your rights, number one. You haven't proved if you have lawful or legal rights in this country, number two. And that does matter. People, all these idiots out there will tell you, oh, that don't matter, but I'm going to explain something to you. It does matter because under the administrative rule of 1868, with the British contract called the Two Constitutions, remember, the British government wants to keep their self going, so they got the income. So those who have their oath done and filed it, remember, they have to keep us protected under that treaty, or else they're open field. And I've got the law that I posted up on the internet, and Trump just came out and stated that. And so, and I've been having so fun with these people that are coming out because Trump finally asked for everybody to start sending their affidavits in on child abuse, the fraud, and I've been preaching this for years. Also, too, I've been preaching this for years to write an affidavit and write the criminal charges. Because if you don't write the criminal charges of what they're violating, they haven't violated any of their administrative rules. So it's comprehending how this reality works compared to see that these idiots on Facebook and all these other ones are talking about. I don't want to get into some of these names of some of these people because it's been funny watching them the last couple of years. I don't mind people taking credit for what I've written and what I do, but it would be nice if they come back and at least be honest about it. So, and that's really pissed me off. So anyhow, now what's going on when Trump come out with this? You see several people out there running around taking credit for what I did 3 years ago. It took a while for it to get through, and there's going to be some other changes Trump is going to come up with. Now, there's been things I have mentioned, and you watch that Trump does them. I wonder how the information gets passed along. See, there are people who are really honorable out there paying attention to Facebook, paying attention to the circumstances. And yes, I know Facebook has attacked me many times for putting up factual history and stuff. And they call it hate speech, which is bullshit. It's not hate speech, it's telling the truth. But you got to remember, in Nazi Germany, you can't tell the truth. And that's what these people in California are living right now with electricity off and some of the structure. Now, they're still concerned about Oroville Dam down there. If that breaches, the whole valley in San Francisco will flood out. We'll be under at least 3 to 4 feet of water. And yes, I have experienced California floods before. I worked them when I worked for the state of California back in the 80s. So I've been through that where they say on these floodplains, oh, they're not going to flood out, and I worked them when they were 2, 3 feet underwater in San Benicio and San Rafael. When I worked for the State California Conservation Corps when I was trained as a firefighter. But anyhow, this is the one thing that when you look at this, and people don't realize the oath that these public servants have to take. They take an oath to go against the Constitution, but their job tells them to do that or else they don't have a job. Their supervisor does that, like the mayor of Toledo, Oregon, Rod Cross, and the city council. My house was robbed by the Toledo Department because they filed the criminal charges on these people. They don't want this stuff out. So now here's the other point, is find out who runs the copyright for your city council. File on them, own them. See, we are putting up the laws that there is no immunity for any public servant, and that's under 11th Amendment. No public employee has immunity. Even a judge has no immunity. The only way he has immunity if he didn't violate his oath to the Constitution and, first off, the native treaties. And I post that up because the native treaties are the superseding all administrative rules because they're the law of the land. That's by Stephen Judge Roberts in the Supreme Court. So when it comes down to these things, it's reading this stuff and comprehending what the real facts are compared to everybody throwing this stuff out because they want to make a buck. I'm getting ready, I've got to file some other paperwork because they want to come after me for not paying taxes still on property. And I've proven that you don't have to do it. So the Lincoln County tax assessor said, Joe tells me, well, if you don't pay it, we're just going to send the sheriff in to kill you. So, okay, I got that letter be coming out here in the next few days. And because I'm calling Joe on his deal because by Oregon state law, my administrative rule, what they call law, is you're not supposed to pay property taxes on any manufactured home in the entire state of Oregon. That's the administrative rule, folks. That's what it says. You're not to pay any type of property tax or title fees, and it even clearly states you're not to register it with the clerk or the assessor office. It says it is private property. It says it right there in administrative rule. But as Joe from Lincoln County tells me, hey, we need our money. And I said, well, I'm on the phone with him, and he's like, said, Joe, we need to cut the stuff out. He goes, well, if everybody believed like you had and didn't pay us, we wouldn't have the income we have. Duh. That's why they're raping your children, robbing you. That's why they're causing harm to you. So I got this week, 2 days ago, I'm talking to a lady, she wants to go after for her kids. So I'm going through the circumstances with her. I tell her what she needs to do. I suggest I can't tell anybody what to do because you're free. You're supposed to have free mind and be intelligent thinking, but sometimes that questions people. But I'm suggesting to file these criminal charges about what the officer did and all this stuff. And then all of a sudden her attitude says, I can't do that. I'm a Christian. Moron alert, moron alert. Because when she sat there and said, I'm a Christian and I can't sit there and defend my child because of the name of some God fantasy, I comprehend that people have the right to their religious belief, minus the Constitution and the treaties. Others might be the religious books. But remember, and I get people tell me all the time, those people are not following what the book says. Well, technically they are when they're not standing by each other in a courtroom, when you're not standing each other by the administrative rules and writing letters and supporting each other and backing each other up and making that this is just not all about me. Yeah, you're acting the same way when the Christians murdered the Indians, came over and said, We got to make sure that you're civilized because you're savages, because you took care of your families. You didn't rape, rob, and steal. You had honor compared to the Bar Association and the British government. And remember, the Bar Association is the British Auxiliary Register, the King and Queen of England, and it was originally founded in the United States in 1867, August 21st, and that goes by the American Bar Association. And if you actually read the American Bar Association, you'll see it's still registered as the King and Queen of England. And that means all these attorneys that tell me and lawyers that tell me, oh, I'm not under the bar, bullshit. You know, if you don't pay your dues, you don't have the right to do business in the courts. And remember, those courts are not for the general public. Those are administrative court, tribunal courts, and those are military courts, and those are supposed to be handled by elected and public employees and registered church members and native illegals and immigrants. If you're native, you're not even supposed to be in any of those courts, and they're not technically your public employees. Are not supposed to have a conversation or contact you, unless you contacted them in an emergency situation, like I did last Friday when I was starting to have another heart attack. So I called up the ambulance, and so next thing you know, SWAT shows up at my door before the ambulance does. I got M15s pointed at me. And then the ambulance shows up, and everybody's wearing bulletproof vests. It's like, what the fuck? I'm having a heart attack. You know, so I finally get to the hospital, and it was the next morning, early in the morning, where the doctor finally got me stabled and said, you know, we got two choices. You want to go ship out and go have heart surgery, or we can take a chance, and you can see how you're going to make it. And I said, hey, I want to go home. I got work to do. So, you know, and that's the way it is. So, and that's why I'm still doing my work. But yeah, I go in for heart surgery. What on that too? I mean, I got a chance on either or. So, I mean, I live in reality. I don't live in this fantasy. I'm not going to go pray to somebody for something that I'm not going to get. The Creator, the Great Spirit, and Mother Earth is what I pray to, because without that, we don't have food, water, we don't have life, we don't have children. You know, some religious of some book god, we don't have nothing with that one. And see, that's where people got to start coming to the real truth about what's going on around us. You know, because when you read these administrative rules, you start reading that there is no God. It's even in some of these administrative rules. It's even in, technically, it's in the foundation of the Supreme Court. But they can't tell you that because the court system, they still want to do a tribunal court on the Article 1 court, not on Article 3. Article 3 courts are your lawful courts in this country. Article 1 tribunal are military courts, and that follows under the Roman Catholic Church, and that's still the bar code. And so I've got that pretty well nailed down. I'll have this out. And with the barcodes that I'm coming up with, this is going to be interesting because you got to find out, like your city manager. I wrote this piece up. If anybody wants a copy, I've emailed it out to several people. I will email it out to anybody else who wants it. I wrote the structure of who owns the state of Oregon. And every copyright came back to Dexter Johnson. And I knew Dexter back when I was up at the Capitol back in, late 1990s and 2000s. And I worked with him a couple on my own bills up there. And remember, when the House and Senate passes a bill, it's a bill that's supposed to be paid by the national debt, and national debt is the British government, not American government. We the people never went bankrupt. The corporation of Title 183002, the United States Corporation, went bankrupt, and that was the British banks. So, I mean, let's tell the truth, folks. Let's not just get out there and have all these people that are throwing all this. And there's some names I really want to name about some of these people that are doing this on Facebook and, the emails going out with these nonprofit organizations. But, I don't want to sit there and play their game, when it comes down to it. All I know is that people are going to wake up and people won't do business with them. You get all these people that says, "Oh, send me $200, send me $300." You know, I've been starving myself. All right, I'm severely disabled. I should be out hunting and fishing and still gathering my food as best I can. But I can't because if I travel on my covered wagon, I'll be shot. I mean, the police department's already made it. I got YouTube videos of them saying it. I got YouTube videos where the police department's literally been stalking me for 12 years. And that's Newport and Toledo. But I do have to recognize that we do have a couple of cops. I don't even know if they're still here anymore, but I know there's a couple still in Newport that actually peace officers and several sheriff deputies that honor their oath of servitude. I've dealt with them on several different types of issues, and they've always honored their oath. And remember, the sheriff's department, technically by law, cannot be outside of a courtroom. Their job is to protect the judge. Their job is not to protect the people in the pews. So when you start putting all this real history together and you put all the facts together, it is totally amazing what comes out. And that is the whole point, people. You need to put these things together and figure this out, because once you start putting this out, and you know, they can't argue with it. And some of these public employees, don't know this stuff. They're learning. Pretty much some of them are learning as I've been posting this. It's like the other point, I'm still questioning why the city of Mayor took the tires off my boat. I mean, that was 2 months ago. So, you know, it's like when we had our conversation, he's like trying to tell me that's parked in the city right-of-way. No. It's called the right-of-way of my soil that I give the city permission because it used to be a salmon run. And where I live was a registered salmon run. And that's what they try to do, is chop off the creek in my property. And no, they're not doing that. And I fought them on that for 10 years. So what they did is they built 7 new houses above me, and so everybody plugged in their drainage, and the sewer, their rainwater and drainage comes to my creek bed now. So, and then when we put in the water line, and we would have put a 3-foot one in instead of a 2-foot, that might have worked, because everything past my house is all 4-foot major, the 4-foot tubes that you see up in the all that when you go hunting and fishing. You see those big round plastic tubes that the roads go on so the creek and the rivers can still run. So trust me, I know what it's like, because my neighbors had to have the city go in, was it 3 years ago, because they had to put in all this new drainage through the cities, because when it flooded, because it ran right through my house, I mean right alongside my house, never flooded me out, but when it passed my driveway, it flooded everybody out. So the city had to put in drains along the road up here. So as I was saying, if things would have done, if they would have done and listened to me to put in the right drainage, there would be no issue. But this is the problem we have with elected and public servants. A lot of them don't listen. They go by a book, they think that's their Bible, they think that's their regulations, and they think that's what they have to do. They can't step outside the book. So that's why it's our point that now it's time that we need to start filing the criminal charges on these people. You know, like it's hitting the internet and all this stuff where Trump came out and said everybody has to file an affidavit. We got an issue. I've been after that for a long time. I've been preaching that. I've been sending Trump a lot of information. You know, as everybody knows, I did the 14th Amendment, some of the stuff with the 13th Amendment, the last 2 years that, are coming out. And that's why I say it's so imperative that you file your rights so you have something to go to court. Because, I mean, when the Toledo Police Department robbed my house, because that's the only one I could assume, because if it was family, that would have been even worse, because that's how I lost my money. But anyhow, they stole my baby book, they stole my birth certificate. So, and trust me, I've gone into Lincoln County courtroom with Judge Branford and the other judge that died that tried to put me in jail for 2 years because I told him to take a flying hike. So he was going to try to put me in jail for 2 years for telling him off in court. So I can't complain, because just a couple weeks after that, he passed on. So it's like, this is what goes on in these circumstances of life. You're standing up on your rights. That is the main point. Learning your rights. Even if you're an immigrant. See, immigrants have privileges. But technically, so long as you're paying your fees, they can't mess with you. And that's the point that people need to realize, that you have to pay your administrative fees. So when you pay your administrative fees, you're covered. And that is the point that people got to realize. That's called the de facto debt note. And this is how they keep you in the system. So when you pay those debt notes, you're still in the system. Now, it's like I keep going in, and when I go to the hospital, he goes, we need you to sign this. No, I'm under duress. You wouldn't want me to commit a crime, would you? See? Knowing how to talk to these people. That is the main point, knowing how to talk to these people. And that is your responsibility to know this stuff. It's not your children's responsibility. That's like I recommend. And if you don't know, and if you have not looked at a form, 4506A, it's called nonprofit form. I recommend you read it. And if you're going to file on your public servant, if they're the copyright owner or manager or the CEO, because the CEO of the legislature, Senate and House, are the liable party for Dexter Johnson. So when you look at all these pieces and you start putting these things together, they don't want you to put these pieces together. Because if people actually knew that they are financially liable and they have no lawful or even legal authority to deal with or talk to or have a conversation with natives. Their job is only to have a conversation with elected and public employees. That's it. And registered church members. And people keep going, you keep hounding on the church. Yes, I am. The church is from England. It's still under the Roman Catholic Church. That's called the Secretary of State for each state. The Secretary of your state is still run by the Vatican. That's why people go, you picking on the churches? No, I'm just telling you the facts of what the circumstances is, how the Roman Catholic Church is still robbing your children and murdering them by the name of King James Bible. It's a fact, folks. Wake up to the truth here. Because when they're sitting there telling you to go pray, when you get your kids stolen, or you get beat up by the cops, pray, God's going to take care of you. Where God? What God? Why is there a God? Because I've never seen it. I just went through this where I was still shocked Friday night. Last Friday night, I called up for an ambulance because I'm starting to have a heart attack again. And I've had many heart attacks. I know what it feels like. It's not pleasant. I started going through the shortness of breath, suffocating again. Not pleasant when you can't breathe. When you're going in what do they call that? Carbon monoxide poisoning. Oh, you gotta remember, your body is a carbon unit, and they want to attack you for breathing air. So they're saying that, the Roman Catholic Church, your Bible people, you're Christians, we need climate control, we need to pay for all this. They want you to pay the privilege of life to pay the King and Queen of England. True facts, folks. This ain't no bullshit. I've done the research. I've got it posted. I've been putting this out all week for the House and Senate. I served the House and Senate a liability claim. And like I said, if you really want to send me your email, you know how to contact me at New Oregon Trackers, and I'll be more than happy to provide the information. Because I've done the research. I've filed the criminal charges. Everybody's panicking on that because, people are going, you can't file charges on them. I like to explain some things, especially for Native men and women to start learning how to be educated and intelligent. If you read it, as Donald Trump came out and stated that the only ones that technically could file is a lawful native, and it has to be an affidavit. But all these groups out there are just trying to forget the native part because all these immigrants think they have a right. No, we're shipping your ass out of the country. We're tired of feeding you, number one, and we're tired of having, you people take advantage of our children in our country. Trust me, I've dealt with 100 immigrant cases, over 100 immigrant cases that were children of 12 through 15. The youngest, the other one was 16, that were raped by foreigners that came over from the South. So, and I personally dealt with over 100 cases. I've had them try to take me out when I left the courtroom and I'm videotaping Branford letting immigrants go for raping 14-year-olds. Branford, Lincoln County courtroom. He sat there with the judge. These kids are being raped by these Mexicans, and they're letting them go. Videotape the courtroom's been there. Everybody's going, well, hey, how do you know this? Hey, I'm disabled. What else do I got to do? I go sit in public meetings. I go at House and Senate. I used to love doing this all the time, going in with audio cameras and video cameras and recording them and playing them and bringing them out. But then the Democrats came after me and said, you keep it up, we're going to shoot you. You drive without a license, we're going to shoot you. So they took my financial income away from me, most of it. They robbed my house. They stole my stuff. Can't get both sides of the family and all the other crap. But it's like, keep me here. So basically, I'm not doing too bad. And basically, I guess I call it, in a sense, my prison cell. It sure beats the ones I got today because the prison cells I've been in, there's no TV. The last time I was in jail, they put me in a cell with a guy that was bleeding all over the walls and stuff, and he was on oxygen and suffocating. And I was in the jail another time with another guy that, one room cells. Remember, there's no TV in these cells anymore. It's running the same way as the Christian Crusades. Remember, your Christians are running your jails. Don't forget, and every jail has a pastor, minister, or reverend. So they're still running you to destroy your lives, to control your life. Oh, pray to God because you hurt God's feelings. So that's what gets to me about these things. Think about it. You go to jail. Where's your rights? How come you're not going in front of a magistrate? How come you're not having a bail hearing right then? Because if there's no injured party, they can't put you in jail. That's their own administrative rules. But the lawyers, the British bar exam that runs by the British Vatican government, called the Roman Catholic Church, look it up, folks. I put the stuff out. It's all traced to the Roman Catholic Church. It's all traced to the Queen of England. And the other part is the foundation of Spain, where Kate Brown, Oregon governor terrorizing woman, is from. So, I've dealt with Kate up at the Capitol too, and, I started the first recall on Kate. I did it lawfully, not legally. That's where the state freaked out, and the former Secretary of State was starting to work with me on it, and then all of a sudden we got attacked, and then he died. Richardson. So, and I knew Richardson when he was up at the Senate and stuff. A lot of these people up at the Capitol, they know me. Some of them have ultimate respect for me. Some of them are freaked out because I know too much. You can even ask Peter Courtney on that one. So when it comes down to this, on the birth certificate registration, own that child, because by Oregon state law and just about every administrative rule in 48 states, Alaska is a free continent, still free no man's land. Hawaii is still run and owned by the Vatican, called the British government. They still fly the big British flag there. So, let's come to reality here, folks. So we got 48 states that were united after the Civil War. So we're the ones that has lawful and legal rights. So your bloodline goes back to 1866. So, and that's the other point. And then you got people that says, well, my bloodline goes back 2 or 3 years or 2 or 3 generations. All right, same administrative rule. Pay your taxes, pay everything, follow through with it, and then when you pass your assets down to the 5th generation, then they have rights. But it's your responsibility to make sure that generation has the paperwork to prove it. See, it's all based on evidence that we're coming down to the pike here, and everybody's freaking out what's going on because everybody's panicking. And now they're pumping out Hillary Clinton now trying to say, well, she only let Trump win because she's getting ready to take over. I mean, you know, the Democrats will do anything. Pelosi and all these people are freaking out because people are waking up to democracy. There is no such thing. Democracy is the devil. All right? I want the devil. All right? That was George Bush's famous saying. Do we want the regulations to dictate to us our lives? Do we want the law of the jungle? And I have to get that, and we have to play that sometime. But that's the one thing that you guys don't get with these guys sit over time. That's Peanut Man. When Peanut, you know, when Carter won the election in Florida, he won the election because technically Florida is a country of its own. And if you really go back in history, it's still a pirate island, technically. But they don't want to talk about that, so when they brought that into the Union, but remember, Florida still has its own contract under the piracy. Still exists today. So and that's why when I sent that one video out that I got that was 4 hours long, that's why I said, people, you got to watch this stuff with a pen and paper, take the time. You know, turn off Disney, turn off your computer games. Because this matters to you to teach your children. If you don't teach your children and they end up in a FEMA camp, too bad, too sad, sorry. Because you don't care. I see so much the parents don't care. They don't want to take the time to educate their children. I'm too busy. But then when they get home, they're playing computer games. And they're not even attending to their children at all. They just put them in front of a TV set in some stupid cartoon games. Or cartoon show. So, I mean, you know, that's the way it's programmed today. You know, they opened all this up. Remember, I grew up in the 60s, 70s, and 80s, and 90s, and I watched this stuff bloom. You know, and now, you know, I remember when there was, totally, you know, at one point there was only 4 major TV stations. Then it went to 7. And then in the 70s, it was 11 stations, and you could always run the rabbit ears and pick up free TV. So that's what gets to me, you know. They think that people forget it, and people today and the kids today are so confused. They have no idea what's going on. You know, so when it comes down to make sure, and please, look at the information about organ trackers. Look at the videos on YouTube that we put up and listen to them, because I put up a whole bunch of information on the YouTube videos for people to go down the YouTube videos for the last few weeks. So that way they can start reading the laws. I've been posting them up. I'll get the other laws for this section put up. And then I'll be posting the other point dealing with on who owns your state and how to go after them. And that's what I'm doing right now. I have that paperwork totally finished. So, and I've already done the first part, already served it. So, I mean, and then the next part, then I'll do that. And so then I'll call Dexter up and say, Dexter, what do you want to do here? Yeah, because, I mean, and trust me, I don't give a shit. The only one I can't call right now is Trump, but I just can't find. I used to have a number to him at one point, but I don't know what happened to it. That disappeared out of my house because actually that was hanging on the wall in my room. But of course, I was in the hospital when a couple things were taken out of my house. See, and that's the one thing people don't realize. They rape, rob, and pillage, and then it's okay. My neighbor sat there and told me, well, we sat there and wrote an affidavit and saw what we've seen around your place, you know, when you've been in the hospital the last few years. We're not going to lose our business. We're not going to lose our jobs. Those are your Christians today. I'm a Christian. I won't tell the truth. See, I mean, these are all people, Christians, going to church and all this stuff, doing this stuff. And people always jump on me about religion. Oh, Ed, you're too hard on them. I'm witnessing them with my own eyes. But then again, if it's in the church, they'll do something. But if it's outside the church, they're not going to stand up for their neighbors. I haven't seen it. You know, I'm living it. I mean, I know what I've been through. I mean, I know when I lost 2 mayor race, when I ran for de facto mayor under the lawful terms, and I sent out the ballots myself and paid, that was $2,500 with everything involved. out of my own pocket. That people had to autograph their vote, certify their vote, register their certification with the county clerk by law. Of course, the county clerk and secretary of state told me they never saw any of these things. But, and I've had people tell me different. But, this is what I'm saying to you. These are Christians, religious people. I can't just classify everybody as a Christian because, you have, Amish, you have a whole bunch of other variety of religion out there, too. But, religious, what are you doing? You're supposed to stand up for your neighbor, to protect your neighbor. That's what you told, that's what you preach to your kids when they grow up, and then they realize that there's no Christmas. It's all made up. Easter Bunny, made up. Well, that could be the festivals and that stuff. I comprehend that one. But I'm going by the structure that has been placed out there by administrative rules. I'm not talking structure that we've known for thousands of years. Okay, I'm talking about the structure that has been made by administrative rules because Christmas started in 1800 by Macy's department store. If anybody knows real history. I used to have all this stuff, but my computers have crashed, my information has been stolen, I've had stuff stolen out of my place that, with all these documents. I've had cases of paperwork. I even had some of the original paperwork that was filed in 1846 on the treaties in the state of Oregon that were stolen. They were throwing this stuff away, and the Oregon State has a sentence, so instead of going to garbage, I'm collecting it. And then people realized what I was collecting, and so, oh my God, it scared the hell out of people because they didn't make the garbage, so they couldn't rewrite history like Kate Brown has been doing under the year 2000 when they put in an administrative rule that the law of the land is owned by all lawyers in the state of Oregon. So you got to realize that, and you got to remember, all these people, they preach the religious point of view. It's like everybody wants to fight over about abortion. That's the other thing that humiliates me, what people do to themselves. And I mean to me, because I watch people do this to themselves, making an ass out of themselves because it's a woman's body. The woman has the right. It's a parasite growing into her. What does she want to do with it? Let's be honest. Who gives somebody a right to tell somebody else what they're going to do and how they live? What they're going to do to their body if it's not harming anybody else? That's the one thing that we have a constitution and treaties that guarantee us rights. Religion don't guarantee any rights. It guarantees democratic democracy enslavement. It's a fact. Total fact. Because people say, well, I can't do this without praying and making a decision. I know. I was in different fields. I had to make decisions in a split second. I've been in the bar industry. I've been in situations where, people were almost harmed and stuff like that. And you didn't have time to pray to God, stop to pray to God, and go, how am I going to handle it? You have to look at the exit. You have to look at the situation and how to solve the issue. Split second. That's even and that's what takes me great pride in some of our public servants, We got two public servants from the fire department that are injured. These men really took their oath. They always protected people in this community. I guarantee you that. Now, with the police chief, Mike Pace, is always hiding underneath his desk from me, because Mike was the one that tried to have me first shot and was involved destroying and ticketing my ex-fiancée all the time, pulling her over and having harassment by the former police chief that was indicted and convicted of 21 out of 23 charges. And moved to Florida, and then wondering why certain things ain't working for him. Duh. Told you, Dennis. Told you what's going to happen. There's more that's going to come to you if you haven't fallen on your face yet. But see, in the Toledo Police Department, some of these guys have been around for years. I know what they've done. They know what I've done. I got one that's, a bully that's put a gun to my head, and I got the emails out on him threatening my life with a code enforcer. And that's why I believe that the mayor, Rod Cross, came up and took the tires off my boat. Oh, well, if you're going to argue about your right-of-way, and I told him, the main reason I got this boat out here, we get a tsunami. Oh, no, we're so high up in tsunami plain that we won't get, it's like, I don't trust these guys because I do the research on these things myself. And we are on the borderline of tsunami. If it hits a certain feet, we'll be basically, right down the street from me, be underwater, literally. So that's what gets to me about these people, that they play these games. So it's like, right, I mean, hey, I got to make sure I have a backup on the boat because if anybody needs it or whatever, we got one here. So, 2 months ago, after I get out of ICU, that was August, September, almost 2 months ago, a month and a half ago when I got out of ICU, he comes up and takes the tires off. Well, okay, I can play the game. He's trying to claim that maybe he owns something, but he doesn't. They know it. But I've been battling with Rod for 25 years. Even when I ran for mayor, going back in 2000, 2004. Like I said, I've been around this block. These people know me. I've been on numerous talk shows around the state. Lars Larson, you always, call up Lars and ask him what New Oregon Trackers is doing. That would be funny for him to hear from people asking that one. Because me and Lars have known each other going back with his wife, because his wife was my case manager for workman's comp when I got my neck broken. And that's the way they held it off paying on my case on the private side, so that way they can incorporate. And I think it was that 1993 when I went to the workman's comp division. So they went to the state corporation instead of private and public anymore. Because private employees were getting paid lump settlements, and the public employees were only getting their basically 2/3 of their income at that point, and they had 100% medical, transportation, and everything paid for. But they didn't like it because we, people that were really injured, and we would get a lump settlement, we would buy a business, and we would run a business. That's what I was going to do, is buy a restaurant and run a restaurant. Do it full-time, but I could run it, and but I mean, I would have had the income. I wouldn't have been on, what they call Medicare, and all that stuff. I would have been on my own. But remember, they didn't want you on your own. That's what the birth certificate bond is, because they want you in that system so they can write off on your city and county. Because your water department, all right, you pay your water bill, the city writes it off. You send them a payment. They take that payment, put it in their bank account. And then at the end of the year, they write it off as a debt. So they write it off. They get 3 incomes off of that one circumstance of your water bill. Same thing with your phone bill. I mean, this is the game. They know it. And I mean, trust me, I've sat and had hours of conversation with financial people. They were amazed I even knew stuff, and I even suggested stuff that they could do that would improve their income. But they have to do it not legally. Because lawfully, you have rights. Legally, we'll put you in prison. And that's what we want to see, some of these people in prison for what they've done. So, but your birth certificate and insurance bond under Executive Order 2040, because it was set up at $630,000 per birth certificate. Now, let me clarify that. That was birth certificate of Native Americans only. Now, Carter was the one that started giving birth certificates to bring the Cubans in. Obama brought in 20 million immigrants and gave them birth certificates and rights to vote when there is no right for them to vote. Because technically the only ones that can vote are elected and public employees and registered church members. And if the natives actually got voted, their votes are the votes that count over the corporation. Shouldn't have 17 if you read it. But like I said, it's amazing because people don't read this stuff. The Banking Act, Title 12 of the Banking Act, because banks can't own property. And remember, your city, county, and state is a bank. So when they're selling your public land off, that's a federal crime. They're pocketing the money. They can't sell public land. They can't trade it. I know, I've beaten this on many accounts, but that's why they went after me so much, because when I was in the public eye, we were saving a lot of stuff in the public. So, and people say, well, the public is not yours, it's the corporation. No. The law on public. That's pretty like public right-of-ways. You don't have to buy a hunting and fishing license. I've set those laws up. Even California and Oregon state law says you don't need to have a hunting and fishing license. And I send that out to people all the time. And it's like, Because when I grew up in California, it used to be in the California Synopsis until some of my old boxes got thrown away. I used to have a case of the old Synopsis going back to the 1970s. And when you turned over to the second page, it gave you your water rights that you didn't need a fishing license and the rivers, streams, the or any public right-of-ways. If it was a private lake, private property, you had to have permission, and if they had a permit, like some of those private fishing ponds do in California, because they're private fishing ponds, they're nothing to do with the state fishing association, then you need to buy their permit, okay? And most of them charge you $1 fish, with their permit is $5.95 or something like that, and they're guaranteed you a kid fish, 16 inches or more, and most of them. So, but I mean, this is the point. Knowing what our structure is compared to what we're constantly lied to. And you got to remember these administrative rules, why these guys are making $100,000 a year is because you. Because technically these people should only be making maximum $35,000 to $40,000 a year with complete 100% medical and dental for them and their immediate family. So that's the way it used to be, immediate family. All medical structure, ambulance, and all that was 100% covered under their insurance fund. And their insurance fund, don't forget, when you pay your property taxes, the corporation, and the native people, because we're supposed to be exempt from property taxes, I put that up too. Now, when they pay their property taxes, there's a double insurance fund and a bond in their insurance fund that covers them mandatory. It's already in your tax structure. I argued that when Lincoln County went to the new ambulance system. It's already in the deal. And then they wanted to argue in Lincoln County for the North and South ambulance system because we have a North and South County. So we have two ambulance companies. So I don't know if they're not supposed to do it anymore. But they used to, because when people got injured in South County, they could only come up to the border of North County, just shy of Newport, and they had to transfer them into the other ambulance for North Lincoln County. Crazy, I know, but they did that for shit. When I moved up here, I was just so amazed at some of the stuff I saw was going on by the old administrative rules. And so if you got injured, they're shipping you to another ambulance. And you shouldn't be shipped that way. See, you should go straight from, the injury point to the emergency room. And they had two patients die that were being shipped because they had to wait for the other ambulance, so they died in the ambulance. And that's in Lincoln County history,
Yeah.
Even Mayor Mark Olson had his mother. So, yeah, am I running on time here?
Well, you've spent 50 minutes giving us a history of Lincoln County when you were supposed to be talking about birth certificates.
Oh, yeah, I know. I'm sorry about that. Yeah, I just been going through some of that. But let me get back to the birth certificate. Thanks for getting me back on track then. So, and I was going to get to it, but that's what I'm saying is that, all this stuff is on your registration or your birth certificate insurance fund. It's a bond. So if you are lawful native, that under Executive Order 2040, and that under the 1933 Bankruptcy Act, which we do have that information in congressional records, that states that you have lawful rights. You're not here as a legal citizen. Legal citizens have privileges, no rights under the birth certificate laws. And so that's the one thing that we've got to sit there and we're putting these things together and look at the criminal charges because, see, as law, it is even immigrants. You can file criminal charges so long as you're paying your taxes, the IRS administrative rules. And remember, the IRS under your birth certificate is in Puerto Rico. It's not an American company. And when you pay your state and federal and property taxes, 60% of your taxes that you pay into that system, 60% of everything you pay mandatorily goes to the Queen of England and to the Vatican paying off the national debt. That's why the national debt is racking up. Now they want to blame Trump from the national debt when, the national debt was raised so much by Obama. We haven't even seen everything what Obama did on the birth certificate bonds. And now we're starting to see some of the stuff coming forward, and people are starting to point the finger at Trump, but Trump wasn't involved because we won't see Trump stuff until 2 years after he's gone. See, that's the one thing when you get to comprehend how your system works. You know, and don't forget, Donald Trump comes from New York City. New York City is owned by the Vatican. It's not part of the United States. New York City is a corporation of Washington, D.C., filed and registered. So New York State is part of the Union, but New York City is part of the Vatican, you know, the White House, D.C. structure. So, and that's, like I said, everything falls under the birth certificate registration bond. So when you have a newborn child, and this had some conversation with people on the phone, how to sit there and file to own your child. Because when you have a newborn, if you don't file on that child in 30 days, by administrative rules in 48 states, says, at 45 days, if you haven't registered to claim your property, it's called an abandoned vessel or abandoned property. That's how the state can take your property, and they can actually claim it as theirs. So that's how they get the rights to come in your house without a warrant. And there's 2 court cases under the Ninth Circuit court case that admit to this. So, and I mean, they're finally coming out and admitting to some of this stuff after all these years of the cover-up, because since Trump put in over 150 new judges across the country, we're finally getting some men that or women that are honoring their oath of servitude. Not everybody's turning their back and still going by the game of how much we're going to put into our retirement fund. Because remember, all these and bonds go into the judges, the lawyers, the clerks, the public employees' retirement funds, the general funds. See, that's what gets to me, like when Oregon was claiming they were bankrupt under the retirement fund. No, they weren't. I know that because I worked up at the Capitol when they were doing that stuff. And like ODF and W, off of the birth certificates, somehow placed or they couldn't find, just in one biennium, $500 million disappeared. Remember, biennium is 2 years, not 3, not 4. So every other Senate session is what a biennium is. So $500 million disappeared. And that wasn't the first time it's happened. So they're taking this money off of the birth certificate, and they're billing this stuff like when you go to jail and you're in jail and you use the phone system. And when people call in the phone system in jail, they charge you $5 a minute. That's a crime. They legally cannot do that. And I have that information. I put that information out last year, or 2 years ago too, and written the whole thing up, what, why, and how they can do it, and how they can't do it, and how you can get around the phone system and get free phone system. See, I mean, this is our system is there off of the birth certificate bond of how we need to use it. When people ask me, "Why need you to sign this?" I say, I'm under duress. I never use the word stress. Stress is a medical terminology. It says that I need help. I'm not capable of handling my responsibilities. Look at the terminology of the legal term of stress means. So stress means I'm under stress. I'm pulling my hair out. I can't handle reality. It's learning your medical terminologies, and especially learning your medications when they put you on different things. You know, because they'll want to put you on psychological medication. It's like, you know, and you don't need this. And they do that so that way they can go off your birth certificate bun for the nonprofit, like when they're talking the opiate crisis today. So they're billing their certificate for an opiate crisis just in case you might have it. So we got to bill into this fund just in case you come to one of these drug and alcohol treatment programs. I mean, this is a vicious circle, the way that they have created this thing. But once you step out of the movie and you catch the production of this and how all the pieces come together, you start going, holy shit, what? Because when you put the copyrights together and then you put the birth certificate bonds, then you put the city and county structure under the city clerk, the county clerk, the state clerk, and that's called the Secretary of States because all your paperwork has to be registered with them, they claim. Mine, I just publicly put mine in museums because museums could only carry lawful information, not legal. And that's one thing people don't get. And that's like your state records. They have to carry lawful, not legal. So once you start realizing how your system works inside your system, you know, it starts coming together. And people are starting to respect it more. You know, and now I'm seeing a lot of this trash from the terrorists to Clinton coming out. And then they just put a thing on YouTube about Clinton being the best-dressed man. He was that way in the 80s compared to now. And don't forget, the Watergate structure, Hillary Clinton was a lawyer in Watergate. She was fired. She was brought up on charges, and so her negotiation was that she gave up her bar license instead of doing 1 year in prison. Real facts, folks. And now she's out there going, I'm in Watergate, I did this. No, they're not telling you the story that what she did. These people are rewriting history. Just write your books without going by the treaties and Constitution. Now, it's like the original Constitution of the state of Oregon says we're not to pay taxes at all. That's the 1846, the original 1950 or 1859 original, and then they did the amend in April of 1859 when they did the corporation. So it's knowing how what the corporation affected with the birth certificate. When the administrative rules started coming through in 1940, after they did the bankruptcy and all these stuff, and then they did the federal administrative rules, because most people, after they did administrative rules, even through the 1950s, 60s, and early 70s, most people never had a driver's license, fishing license. Anybody who knew your elders back then and talked to them, they didn't. The only ones that actually paid for hunting and fishing license back then were elected and public employees. That was part of their criteria. That was part of their union contracts they had agreed to have a job that's paid by the taxpayers or by the birth certificate insurance fund. The taxpayers technically are supposed to be them themselves repaying their system to keep them alive. It's not our job to keep their system alive. It's their job to keep it alive, and they're killing their system. And when democracy, as they say, oh, we have a democracy, when it crashes, you're all done. But remember, your democracy today is rape, robbing, and pillaging and murdering the same thing they did to the Native Americans, the same things they did in the Christian Crusades. And don't forget, the Christians and Muslims, the Muslims were founded by the Christians. Christians founded the Muslims, 1100. You know, it's like, it just amazes me when people don't get how all this structure goes back to the Roman Catholic Church, the Roman laws, and remember your eagle on your flags, that's you're admitting that you are a Roman, that you're not an American. You are still under the Vatican of the circumstances by the eagle on the top. You know, the spear is the war flag, the ball is the club. You know, all these things have meanings. See, that's the one thing. All these things have meanings in life. That's why I always suggest people to watch the movie Interstate 60, because it'll explain your court systems. The one will see if you get it or not. You know, I mean, so when it comes down to this, I'll be getting some more information coming out on what I'm filing on this other stuff here later this week. Like I said, there is a Pandora box opening. I did send out the structure that I did file on the city of Toledo with the structure of Dexter Johnson as the registered agent for the state of Oregon under the administrative rules that the legislators, Oregon state legislators, were financially liable with their homes and assets all the way down to the mayors and city council. You see, I mean, I knew this stuff 20 years ago. I mean, even when I was on the talk shows, when I was running for office back in the 1990s, I'd tell them this. And everybody would call me crazy. Literally, these people called me crazy. You know, the news media, I mean, because most of these people were, I graduated college. They didn't graduate college. They graduated some educational school that didn't educate them. Now these people, what I sent to them and the media and everybody's freaking out what I brought up. Because it's the real facts. And so that's the point. We want to bring the real facts to the table. So when you're filing your affidavit, always do it in red ink. And you can always file the nonprofit organization is Form 45068. And that form, when you print that out and you send it in to your city, your county, whatever it is, drug treatment program, okay, I would write the letter like I did with the criminal charges with them, so that way they just can't sit there and overlook it, because they're going to investigate, because they have to by law, because if they don't do that, the IRS is shut down, and the Queen of England and the Vatican don't want that. Because remember, the Bar Association cannot live without, that being open. Because once that's closed down, the bar doesn't exist. So when you step out, it's so amazing how these pieces come to the puzzle. The puzzles to these pieces come together. So with that, we're going to open up the floor and see if anybody's got any comments and get some more work done. I will be getting some of this stuff out. I'm looking at talking about trying to start going off the internet, do commentaries like every other day or something like this, because I got so much stuff that I'm got opening up, bringing to the table. Things are just pouring out of the woodworks right now. And because, like last Friday, I started to have another major heart attack again, and they got me in and stopped it. I still can't believe that SWAT showed up before the ambulance. But tells me, apparently what I've been filing has got somebody nervous. So anyhow, appreciate your time. Let's open up the floor.
All participants are unmuted.
Anybody got any thoughts? I guess it went a little too long, huh? Well, nobody's got it. Go ahead.
Oh, nothing. I was just laughing.
Oh. Now, by the way, you did get that information I sent to you on your FB, didn't you?
On my what?
Your FB page. I sent you some stuff dealing with Texas registration.
Through my on my Gmail?
No, I did post it on your FB page.
Oh, I haven't been on it for a while because I've been reading the federal criminal procedures. Going over
gotcha.
That. Yeah, and now I'm getting ready to go start going over the. I'm gonna have to go back over it because that's a lot. But I know it is. Yeah, and then I have to go over the the evidence, and so I haven't been on Facebook really that much.
Okay, some stuff with you on administration stuff that you're gonna love, and then yes, going through it. But see, the one thing is that it's like in my situation, I've exhausted all of my administrative remedies. So now that way I can file even in their own court, and they can't turn it down because the law says that I don't have to pay court fees because I've exhausted my administrative remedies. And that's what you're working on. But yeah, when you get that, I did send some stuff to you and put it on your FB. Facebook has been attacking me again, saying some of the stuff I put up on the laws is hate speech. So
yeah, right.
I know.
See some of the stuff that the Democrats are putting up.
Oh, I know. I even put commentaries to some of the stuff with the real laws. And then I was knocked off. I was knocked off of Facebook for 10 straight days. I couldn't even put a happy face, smiley face, or nothing. So, that's where, people wondering what happened to me for 10 days on Facebook, because I got some interesting comments. Folks, sorry to say, but, they made sure I wasn't able to comment on anything. They wanted to make sure I wasn't able to. So, and these people are getting stuff because we're allowing it. And people go, well, Facebook is doing this, that, and the other thing. And they're doing it because we're allowing it. See, that's the point that stuns me. We're allowing this stuff, and then everybody wants to bitch. They're not doing anything about it. Like Trump just came out and told everybody, if you want to do something, he told everybody this a year ago. When I was pushing this a year and a half ago, when Trump came out and told everybody you have to put it in an affidavit a year ago. And it's like all of a sudden now people are listening to it. And this stuff came out a year ago, folks. This is not new. But all these groups are trying to claim credit for something that they're claiming that we did all this. And I was sending this stuff and putting it out a year or 2 years ago. So we're on the third year of it. So, but yeah, it is interesting when you start putting these pieces together, isn't it?
Oh yeah, it's very interesting. The thing is that it starts getting, if you read, like I've said before, their weak point is not reading their own structure. And that's where we can beat them by reading all this stuff and using it against them, because they have no idea what the hell is in it.
That's a fact.
Yeah, because I mean, what do you think they do all day? I mean, they're reading all this stuff, and some people like to, some of the lawyers like to, they think they're, what do you call it, publishers or writers or something, and they make it too long. So the judges and the lawyers they're at battle with each other, because one doesn't want to read all that crap. They just want something to the point. The other one, they think that they're artists or something, and that's why they can charge so much. Mm-hmm. So they keep adding up more and more crap because they think they're just really well versed in the law instead of at law.
Right.
And so neither one of them really take time to read anything. So that's where I see us as having a great advantage when we put our stuff together and send it to them. They're not going to go over all of it, and then half of it they wouldn't comprehend anyway.
Exactly. Well, it's like everybody keeps telling me I send these like books out because they're anywhere from 15 to 47 pages long. And they're not going to read it, and it's like, I don't care if they're not going to read it. It's in file. Right now, they have to record it. So even though that they don't read it, they record it electronically, so it's in the system, so that way they're liable. So when it comes back and they go, oh, shit, we didn't read it, well, not our problem. And that's what we want. We want to make sure that it's filed, even electronically, because electronically filing, that came from William Jefferson Clinton, if everybody remembers when that came through, because he did that for the states on the birth certificate insurance and how to collect off the jails. And that's what they did under, what was that, Title IV of the Social Security Act, so that way for adoption of kids, so that way they could adopt kids and make a living off of it. And that's the whole point. I mean, and people don't realize why they steal kids and adopt them out. It's a financial income. Every caseworker gets $7,500 for every child that they work on a case that is adopted. They get a $7,500 bonus check for stealing somebody's child and selling it off. And then the state agency gets that on the birth certificate, and then the judges, when they do that, they get part of that on the insurance bond, that the security bond on the birth certificate, and that goes into the retirement fund. So that's why I always ask people, make sure that you get a conflict of interest statement, even from your mommy, if it comes down to it. Get a conflict of interest statement if she works for the government, because then that way you know that you're protecting yourself. See, we got all these things that are right in front of our face. I've been going through it, I don't know how many years I've been doing talk shows. I guess I've been doing talk shows off and on for 10 years, but lately I've been steady for the last 5 years. And so bringing out all this stuff, and like I said, I read these codes, I read these administrative rules. I want you to research them. I want you to stand on them, because if you don't stand on them, they have no meaning for you or your children. And that's where you got to realize that comes from your children in this structure. So, and how do we protect the kids? On the birth certificate, claiming that birth certificate as property until the kid's 18. And then once the kid's 18, then they have legal ownership. And 18 years old was convinced, and that came through in the Civil War time. Because prior to that, if you go back in British history, an adult was considered 14 years old because they would send them to war when they were 14 years old back in 11th, 13th, 12th, 13th, and 14th century. So, and then England raised it to 16, and that was during the Victoria era in the 1700s. So, I mean, and that's the point. Even kids in England right now today are free. They can claim their independence at 16 years old. And ours is 18, you know. So, I mean, I don't argue with that one. Because technically, you know, at 18, the parents should have raised them up. And I know that people don't get it until they're in their 30s. Most people, go ahead.
I was going to tell you that I was watching a video from a newsreel, and they have well, there was an 11-year-old boy that said he was a transgender. Now, they say in family courts that, well, in courts, they say that someone can't make a decision until they're 18. Family courts, a child can't decide who they want to live with until they're 12.
Right.
But then we're allowing these children to make these adult decisions that they want to be a transgender, and yet the therapists have already said time and time again, these children do not mature until until their mind is at the age of 25.
Technically, yeah.
So, I mean, it's confusing because, I mean, you're telling me that a child can make the decision if it wants to be transgender, what parent it wants to live with, or join the military or not at the age of 18. But they can stay on their insurance until they're 25.
Well, yeah, and then did you like the California decision where the couple did a transgender, a sex change operation on the 11-year-old boy to make him a girl? And the kid had no decision because California state court said, you're the parents, go ahead and, you know, dissect this kid. And so the kid, you know, what is it? The kid is, that was 11, so the kid is, that was 8. So the kid is just about 18 years old now and is still living in a hell because they did these lesbian women did a sex change on his boy to turn him into a girl for their playmate. So, I mean, that's the whole point. All this transgender shit needs to go out the door because you can't make a decision. And I, you know, if they want to make it 18, they have to live with it. But I think 21, and I agree with you. Maturity by psychosis is 25 to 29 years old is what they say statistically. So, I mean, it just makes you wonder how crazy. I mean, this world's getting that crazy where, you know, we forgot what it's like to be responsible for ourselves. You know, so anybody else?
Hey, let's not do Republican talking points here. Come on. Sorry, I had to put that in since they were doing that.
No problem. Well, I see the other one has to throw his 3 cents in too. So, well, with that, well, it was a good one. It was short tonight again. But with that, why don't we do it, call it an evening, and then when I get this other paperwork finished up, I'm putting out a structure right now on Facebook and emailing on a basic structure, and I'll send it to you too in email. What I wrote and put together on the birth certificate, bond, the insurance structure, it's basically a 3-page deal that explains stuff that people should get it reading in 3 pages instead of some of the way I put all this stuff together. But, I mean, it's a quick, short one. And it does explain how the Bar Association, the British accreditation to the King and Queen of England, and I get tired of these people saying, oh, yeah, the bar ain't from the English. I've had lawyers tell me this, and I always nail them on it, too. So it's like you have a club membership, and the card is stamped the bar, and you have a Queen Castle stamp that's the bar card. So it's like, you know, these people, you got to remember, these people, you know, lie, rape, rob, and pillage is their motto. And you got to remember, they stand by that motto. They don't care about you. They don't care about your children. They care about their Mercedes-Benz. They care about their Las Vegas vacations, their to wherever they want to go in the world. You know, and then I will be getting into the structure of a world passport, because I don't play their administrative games, but there's supposed to be a way to file for a world passport that you don't give up your rights on. So I'll be addressing that. I got to get a hold of a couple people who are doing that so I can do more investigation to find out the legitimacy of that. Because, you know, you got all these people out there that are taking pride in stuff they're not doing. You know, I mean, it's amazing that I watch a lot of these people coming out with stuff that I filed and put out even 5, 6, 7, 8 years ago, coming out with it today, claiming it as theirs, and I can go back and send them, and I've sent this to people, you know, trying to claim something that they just came out and wrote and all.